There are two kinds of motivation. The first is external motivation. The second is internal motivation. External motivation is that where the key to our inspiration is on the outside. The boss says, look, if you work hard and perform well, I'll give you a commendation to the board. This is the carrot. And internal motivation doesn't depend on exterior factors. It is inspired by our own thoughts, our own values, and our own beliefs. So to be externally motivated is fine. But the problem with it is, you got inspired because the boss praised you. Tomorrow the boss scolds you, now what do? That motivation that had climbed the Himalayas will go to the Pacific Ocean. And if you are internally inspired, it is irrespective of the externals. So, if we can somehow tap into internal motivation, we then become insulated from the environment. Nothing can put us down. What then is the key to internal motivation? It only requires giving your intellect a strong reason for doing something, a strong why. When you are convinced this thing is so important, you automatically become inspired. Now, if I was to tell you, stay awake, sit in the meditative posture till 3 a.m. in the morning, don't sleep tonight. You'll say, oh, so difficult, I'm getting tortured. But if you have a strong why, you need to make a PowerPoint presentation of your project to the company board, you will stay awake till 5 a.m. in the morning. Nobody needs to tell you anything. You have got a strong reason for this. If we look at the Bhagavad Gita, it explains to us that, look, there is the mind, the intellect, and the soul. The soul needs to control the intellect. Fix the intellect on a certain knowledge. This is valuable, this is important. And then with that empowered intellect, create the suitable sentiments in the mind. The intellect has the ability to inspire the mind if only it decides. Even a little child can do that. All the year long, there was this little girl, Lalita. Her parents would come to me, Swamiji, Lalita does not study, please explain something to her. I said, she is your Lalita, you explain to her. Swamiji, she does not listen to us. Okay, beta, why don't you study? Uncle, my mind does not like to study. The mind doesn't want to study, what a big problem, what can I do? But the same Lalita, when she went for the year-end final exam of grade 4, she fixed the mind. It was a 2-hour examination. For those 2 hours, she was totally focused, not looking at the classmates, not peeping out of the window, just the question paper in front and the best possible answers. Now, how did Lalita become so inspired? She thought she cannot control the mind. And here for 2 hours, her mind was so sharply focused. It was because her intellect had decided, these 2 hours are now critical to me. If I am careless in this time, I will lose the whole year. My classmates will go ahead. And then what face will I show to my parents? For my self-interest, I need to get good marks. Once the intellect was convinced, it immediately controlled the mind. This ability to control the mind with the intellect is the special faculty bestowed upon human beings, not on the animals. The animals are subject to the impulses of their senses and mind. And human beings have the capacity to subjugate the lower instincts and to live their life by the values and beliefs of their intellect. That is why Lord Krishna calls it Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yogam Upashritya Machittah Satatam Bhava. Arjun, what I am telling you is Buddhi Yoga, the yoga of the intellect. This intellect is like a vessel. It has got 50 pieces of knowledge. All that you read, all that you heard, all that you contemplated, it is all in this buddhi. Now, whichever piece of knowledge you activate, that piece of knowledge, the intellect will align with it and the mind will be forced to start obeying. So, for internal inspiration, you convince your intellect the reason for doing something, for being in a particular way, and then learn to manage your mind accordingly. This was the lesson taught with this beautiful story of King Janak. King Janak was the father of Mother Sita, the mother of the universe. A soul got the opportunity to be her father. How elevated was King Janak? He is called Videharaj, that king who had no perception of his body. His sadhana was at that stage. If he puts his hand in the fire, he will not come to know it is burning. That is why he is called Videharaj. The story goes that two pandits in his kingdom, they started discussing. One said, people call our king Videharaj. But how can he be Videharaj? In the midst of so much of opulence, look at the palace in which he lives and his beautiful queen and children. People just create such titles for nothing. So the second Pandit said, let's go and ask him how he is Videharaj. The first one said, it's very dangerous. These kings are whimsical. They can give any instruction at any time. No, he's a learned scholar. He will do us no harm. The second one convinced the first Pandit and they went and approached the king. They said, Maharaj, we are scholars in your kingdom, but we have a doubt that has arisen. You are famous as the king who is beyond the body, who has no attachment to even an atom of this material creation, and whose mind is in the Supreme. Can you please tell us that in the midst of all this opulence, how do you remain Videharaj? Janak heard them. He lifted his eyebrows and frowned and said, your impudence to ask a king how he is Videharaj, you have transgressed your rights as citizens. You will need to pay for this. The two Pandits started trembling. Kings of yore, their power was endless. what will the punishment he metes out to us be? The king said, I'm going to get you both hanged tomorrow, but today you can enjoy. He instructed his servants, take them away, give them an oil massage, dress them up in the regal attire, let them put on the most attractive ornaments, let them have a sumptuous feast, chappan bhog, and put them to sleep in the softest of beds. Those two pandits got the treatment of their life, but they were in no mood to relish it. At night, when they were in this double bed, the first one started telling the second one, I told you so. How foolish of me to listen to you. We are both as good as dead now. Next morning, they were brought to the court. Janak said, I have decided to give you one chance for respite. Will you take it? Yes, Your Honor, what is it? You will both be handed cups of oil filled till the brim. You will have to walk with them around my kingdom, my capital Janakpur. If you can make it back without a single drop falling from the cup, I will then forgive you. The two pandits went out with the cups of oil. They passed by the drama halls, but there was no attraction in the drama halls because the oil should not fall. There were different kinds of shops, their favorite sweet shop and their favorite cloth shop, etc. But nothing was pulling their minds. Finally, they made it back with all the oil intact in the two cups. King Janak said, you have done it. All right then, you are forgiven. You will not be hanged. The Pandit said, thank you, Maharaj. We are so indebted for your kindness. Well, Janak said, let me now ask you a question. Last night, you received such wonderful luxury and opulences to enjoy. Did your mind get tempted by them? They said, no, Maharaj, absolutely not. Death was meandering on our head. We knew in the morning we will be hanged. All right. And today, you were made to walk around Janakpuri. Did your mind go to the various gratifications of the senses available in my market? Hare Maharaj, where was the question of it? We had to retain the oil in the cups. So Janak said, look, it was the same world. And yet you were detached from all these objects of enjoyment and luxury because your intellect realized that at this moment something else is more important. If we are not careful, we can die. Janak said, in the same way, you asked me that in the midst of opulence, how do I remain Vide? The answer is simple. I just remember my death. Any day can be my last. This precious human life can just be wasted away. Every moment of it is invaluable. I must put it to good use. And the best use is Hari Chintan, remembrance of God. By keeping the proper knowledge in my intellect, I sustain my state of detachment from the world. That then is the key to inspiration. You don't depend on externals. You tap into the inner fuel of motivation. And to do that depends on you. keep the good knowledge which you have received from God, Guru and scriptures in your intellect. Revise it over and over again. Become convinced about it. And then let the mind align its sentiments with your knowledge. You will find you have an inexhaustible supply of enthusiasm, utsah. This was the lesson taught to me by Kripaluji Maharaj. When I first had his darshan in Mumbai, in the year 1989, I had been a sannyasi for 5 years at that time. He called me over. He said, "Come, I will teach you the Vedic scriptures." So I went to his ashram, and at his lotus feet I began a study of the scriptures. He said, "You will do nothing except for study. Minimum 12 hours and then 1 hour for musical instruments." So he also told me that in future I want you to distribute this knowledge for the welfare of others. I decided that I will need to speak, and I don't have experience as a public speaker, so may as well practice speaking as well. The problem was that there was no public in the ashram. I could do speaking, but not public speaking. So I would start speaking to the wall of my little room. That was extremely demotivating. Try giving a lecture to the wall. It will not even smile or not even frown. It will not even say that was a stupid joke. So after 5 minutes, I would become so uninspired, I would stop speaking. Finally, in frustration, I went up to Kripaluji Maharaj and said, "Maharajji, I am having a problem. I want to practice speaking. I am not able to do it. Can you please designate one of the ashram vasis who can sit before me for 1 hour every day? Now with that live person there, I will not be demotivated. I will give a lecture." Unfortunately, there was no free person in the ashram. It was in those days a very tiny ashram with 15 people. They were all busy in their sevas. So Maharajji utilized that opportunity to teach me something. He said, "My child, you do not need anything from the outside to become inspired. Carelessness, the reverse of inspiration, also doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within. And it can be eradicated from within as well. I am going to tell you a formula. Remember this all your life. Sayat kamo bhavati tat kratur bhavati, yat kratur bhavati tat karma kurute, yat karma kurute tad abhi nishpadyate." If you have a deep yearning, you will make a firm resolve. When you have a strong decision, you will put in tremendous effort, and that is how you will become. Instead, if your aspiration is mild, your decision will be weak, your effort will be lukewarm, and that is how you will become. Now, when Maharajji said that to me, it just blew me off. I thought I was being careless because I didn't have the necessary externals. And he is telling me, my Guru, that carelessness comes from within. I have the responsibility to remove it. Now my whole perspective changed. The next day I faced the wall. I said, I will not be careless. And beginning to end with a thunderous effort, I completed the lecture to the most enlightened wall in the world. Slowly it became a piece of cake. I was delivering lectures every day of the week. I would go out to the fields and deliver lectures to the cornfields, to the goats and cows that were grazing there, to the water canal, to anything under the sun. The inner carelessness had been removed.